nothing special about blankets. You know, they just, the floor essentially gets covered with blankets. Any and all kinds of blankets. Actually, one of the interesting things is sometimes they try to get a hold of Hudson Bay blankets because of the significance of Hudson Bay in the West, of being the colonizing company that kind of started the settlement in the West. So what happens is when they have chairs all around, they invite everybody to come onto the blanket and take a spot, doesn't matter where, and then they start to tell stories about what happened. Usually one of the first things is the impact of diseases, smallpox and particularly being very, very devastating. And you know, the population, the speculation is the population of this is called Turtle Island by Aboriginal people, North America, and we're the north half of Turtle Island. There was a population of many millions of First Nations people, which is not known. And now we're down to around, in our part of it, about 1 million. And so very, very devastating. So as those things happen, they tell a little brief story about it, and then they say, they give out some cards and they say, you are some of the X number of people that died as a result of smallpox. Would you now step off Turtle Island and take a chair? And then what they do is people do that, is they gather the blanket. They make it smaller, and then they tell the next story. And each time they tell a story, more blankets get folded up, and the remaining people, more people leave, and the area becomes smaller and smaller. And usually it's the blankets where they pick them up or scattered around, so it'd be like in the country. What you end up with at the end is these very small places that really are Aboriginal community, are reserve communities. And you see that where they had the whole country at the beginning, when the settlers arrived, they now have, I forget what the percentage is, less than 2% of the country, and the population is down, and those that are there, you know, are crowded onto very small spaces.
Like this.
And that sort of gives you the, you know, it helps people experience what it's like, what the experience was like for First Nations people. And then, well, they have other things they do, assume a role of, and there's a narrator that tells this main story, that has the thread of it, but then they have different people read scrolls about specific things. For example, when you get to residential schools, what it was like being, what it was like in the community when all the kids were taken away. What did that feel like? And for the kids, what did it feel like being away from your parents for months and months at a time? And what did it feel like when you went back to your community and people turned their back on you because you were no longer part of the community, because you lost your language and you lost your way of life? No, those kinds of things. So it made really an experiential kind of thing.
So you are inviting not only community people in our river, so no matter who they are, you are inviting all people.
And yeah, and we're hoping to get a number of First Nations people as well. Very difficult here because there aren't a lot of First Nations communities and people in this community. But we know that we've got some coming from Carry the Kettle First Nation, and I was talking to John the other day, and I think he's got some coming from the Carlisle area, some of the reserves up there. When all this is done, then there's a talking circle, or more than one, if there's, depending on the size of the group. But basically, an opportunity for people and then talking circles is a native tradition where people take turns talking, and you have a talking item, stick, stone, feather, whatever, and you pass it around, and only one person talks at a time, and they share their experience. And you can pass if you want to, but it helps people to express what they feel. And the importance of having First Nations people, having Aboriginal people, is that they also don't have a good understanding of their own history, because the teaching in the residential schools was that you are a backward people, that you're evil, you know, you weren't allowed to speak your language, and all this. So they for many of them haven't felt free to talk about it. So when they finally get to participate, it brings out a lot of emotions.
Good opportunity for everybody understand history of our Canada,
Yeah.
which was forgotten for the last 4 or 5 decades, 5 centuries.
Centuries, yeah.
Centuries.